Hello, everybody. Welcome to this latest Arizona Capital Times Morning Scoop, Coalition for Protecting Arizona's Lifeline. I'm Steve Goldstein. Thanks very much for joining us this morning. Our panelists, very interesting group of folks, all mayors of municipalities around Arizona. Lisa Navarro Fitzgibbons is mayor of the city of Casa Grande. John Crane is a mayor of the city of Carefree. And Joe Winfield is mayor of the town of Oro Valley. Thank all of you for joining us this morning. I know you have busy schedules, so 60 minutes can be a lot. So thanks again for being here today.
Thank you, Steve.
Introductory remarks. Terry Goddard is with us, president of the Central Arizona Water Conservation District Board. He'll talk about this coalition for protecting Arizona's lifeline, a great way to kick off this conversation. Terry, please go ahead.
Thank you, Steve. It's a great pleasure on behalf of the Central Arizona Project to welcome everybody to this second session on water. And the fact that we've had to do two this year, I think says a lot about how urgent the issues of water are for Arizona as a whole and for Central Arizona in particular. As I'm sure you know, the Central Arizona Project is an engineering miracle that takes water from the Colorado River 300 miles through Central Arizona and ends up in the city of Tucson. It's incredible. It takes the water up over 3,000 feet and it does it seamlessly. We never notice it until there's a shortage. And I guess that's what we're here to talk about here today. This year, the Department of Interior has determined that we're in a tier 1 shortage. That means we cut from the CAP total supply about 1/3. That's what we did last year and the year before. So it may sound like things are pretty normal, but they really aren't. And I want to tip my hat, if I had a hat, to the cities and the people of Central Arizona, because they cut back significantly, even more than the amount that was required from CAP, that we're still in a tier 1, because the runoff, the precipitation in the Rockies was poor this year. The runoff was even worse, and we're suffering some historic low levels in the Colorado River. And that's what we have to deal with right now, because in a year, at the end of 2026, the 7 basin states are going to have to come up with a new arrangement for how we divide the Colorado River. And there is no agreement right now among the states. Everybody within the 2 basins are at each other's throats. There's been no movement from the upper basin, who basically says, even in times of severe shortage, they're not going to give up 1 drop of Colorado River water. It's an unreasonable position, in my opinion. I think it's shared by just about everybody south of Lee's Ferry. And we're going to have to work through that, or the federal government will step in and impose a solution, or we'll have to go to court. And none of those are desirable alternatives. We've always worked out our problems in the basin. Hopefully we still can, but time is getting very short. And for that reason, a lot of mayors, a lot of city officials, recognizing how important their supply of the Colorado River is, have come together in the coalition that we're talking about here today to protect Arizona's lifeline. And just a little historic sidelight, back 100 years ago when I was mayor of Phoenix, actually 40 years ago, we got the first Colorado River deliveries to Central Arizona. And the slogan that was given to us then, and it was appropriate, was "Your lifeline is online." In other words, what now amounts to about 1/3 of the total water coming into Arizona was now available for Central Arizona and the growth and the prosperity of this area. Today, this coalition has come together to protect that lifeline, because it is truly in jeopardy. And these mayors represent the 3 counties that make up the Central Arizona Project district service area. They're extraordinarily dedicated public officials. They come from a variety of backgrounds, but they're all committed to trying to save Arizona's water supply. So I want to thank them for stepping up, along with over 20 other mayors. We're moving out now to the business community and the tribal communities to make sure that we have a unified voice here in Arizona. Well, that's enough for me. But we're very glad that you're here, that you've shown your interest in water. And thanks to the 3 mayors who are our panel today for standing up for Arizona's lifeline, the Central Arizona Project water from the Colorado River. Thanks a lot.
All right, Terry Goddard, thanks very much. We'll hear from you a little bit later. And mayors, I want to just do before we go into our first official question, hey, Mayor Fitzgibbons, let me start with you. I'm making the presumption that people viewing have been to all of your communities, but if they haven't, can you tell us how big, how many people are served by what we're talking about today? And if there's even another little tidbit you want to say about your city.
Sure. Good morning. It's truly a pleasure being here. So thank you for having me. The city of Casa Grande is just about 70,000 people. You know, we're excited we're becoming the manufacturing hub and of the southwest here of the state. So excited about the growth that's happening here.
And Mayor Crane, how about Carefree?
Well, thank you very much for having me today. It's really an honor to be here. Carefree has about 3,700 citizens, so a relatively small town, 9 square miles. And we draw our water from Cap and Wells. And so we're really, really glad to be here.
Thank you. And Mayor Winfield, Oro Valley?
Good morning, everyone. The town of Oro Valley is approximately 36 square miles. We have a population of about 50,000 people, and the town celebrated its 50th anniversary last year. We were incorporated April 15th, 1974, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Terrific. Great to have all of you. And Mayor Fitzgibbons, let me start with you for the first question. I'm going to have all of you discuss it. Every city and town has its own example of what I think people would refer to as a water portfolio. Can you give us the idea of where your community gets its water supply? Is it entirely from the Colorado? Questions like that. Can you break it down for us?
Sure. So Casa Grande definitely has a unique water service setup. Most of the city is served by a private utility, which is Arizona Water Company, but that we do also own a smaller system, Mohawk Anderson Water, outside the city limits, which serves about 250 customers. The long-term goal of this is to provide water for future development of a big Copper Mountain Ranch area on the north side of town. So we primarily rely on groundwater from local aquifers, supplemented by the Colorado River water to recharge those aquifers. So the city also uses recovered effluent, which currently helps replenish the groundwater and is expected to become a source of future development for sure. So overall, the city's water portfolio includes roughly 4,200 acre feet of groundwater and about 1,300 acre feet of recovered effluent.
Great. Okay. And Mayor Crane, what about Carefree?
Yes, so Carefree, all of our water is supplied by the Carefree Water Company. About 5 years ago, we acquired accounts which were served by a neighboring water company to bring them under our water company service. And they were accounts all within the town of Carefree. And we did that because we believe we need to control our own water destiny for all our residents. So we took that on. It was quite a project from an engineering point of view and from just a financial point of view, but we pulled it off, and now they are all underneath the Carefree Water Company umbrella. So today our water portfolio consists of just two sources. One is Cap and one is wells. We have an aquifer that we draw water from. So until about 1990, we were solely on well water, and we really strained that resource. So when Cap came on board, it was truly a lifeline for us. And since then, we've been able to replenish the aquifer, and it's operating in a stable way.
And Mayor Winfield, what's Oro Valley's water portfolio?
Yeah, thank you. The town of Oro Valley has its own water utility, and we have three principal sources of water. Groundwater, which represents about 50% of the total delivery to our customers. Central Arizona Project water, which represents 30%, and then also reclaimed water for primarily turf irrigation represents 20% of our water portfolio.
Mayor Winfield, let me stay with you on this as I ask a follow-up, because thank you all for giving us a numerical breakdown, which is extremely important. Can I ask you a little bit, slightly more philosophical sense, from a practical sense and from a greater sense, what the Colorado River means to a community like Oro Valley, its ability to sustain and grow into the future?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, the Central Arizona Project water, it provides a high quality source of drinking water. It is an important source for aquifer replenishment for future use. It is also a key component of helping our community to be prepared for drought resistance. As we know, we've been in a 20-year drought, 20-year plus. And so Central Arizona Project Water is really key. You have to go back almost 20 years when the town had its highest use of groundwater. So we've been able to significantly reduce that because of Central Arizona Project Water.
Mayor Fitzgibbons, can I ask you the same question from a bigger picture, not just in terms of numbers, but what the Colorado River water means for Casa Grande to continue growing?
Well, you know, the good thing is we haven't seen a huge impact in the industrial area quite yet. And that's primarily due to the development doesn't require subdivision, you know, to plat. So that hasn't affected, but in the future, you know, we have to make sure that we're doing our part. You know, that we live in a very large um, farming community. And so they rely heavily on the Colorado raw water for irrigation. So they've already seen drastic cuts. So this could really affect our farming community. And of course, that's a ripple effect, you know, how it affects the farmers and the employees and, you know, everything else that goes with that. So can make a huge impact.
And Mayor Crane, as you mentioned, Carefree, the population is not huge, but it is in Maricopa County, an area that a lot of people love to visit, love to go see. So tell me about how the Colorado River affects your ability to sustain what you're doing and maybe even do a little bit more.
Well, we know just from history that we are dependent on well water. Uh, that's a finite resource, and we were depleting it even 30, 40 years ago. So today, about 70% of the water that we consume comes from the Colorado River, 30% comes from our wells. So we strike a balance such that the groundwater is sustains, it's at a stable level. It's I mean, it's critical to our you know, financial well-being. So we don't have industry here, and we are a residential community. We depend on, but having said that, we depend on commercial activities to sustain ourselves. We run the town on sales tax revenue, so we need to be able to um, uh, retain the businesses that we have and be able to attract other businesses. So that's critical to looking forward. We're probably about 75% built out um, in our community in terms of land use, but to sustain our quality of life and our economic well-being, Cap Water is just critical for us.
And if you're watching and just joining us, this is the Arizona Capital Times Morning Scoop Coalition for Protecting Arizona's Lifeline. We're talking about Colorado River water with three mayors from Arizona: Lisa Navarro Fitzgibbons, mayor of Casa Grande; John Crane, mayor of Carefree; and Joe Winfield, mayor of Oro Valley. And we have room for your questions, your comments. Just put them up in the Q&A screen. We will get to them as soon as we can and when it's relevant to the conversation. Again, put those in when you have a chance. And Terry Goddard is with us as well. Terry, did you have any comments about what the mayors have said?
Well, Steve, I think they've underlined a critical point. Large city, small city in Arizona, your quality of life and your opportunities for the future are dependent upon the dependable, high quality supply of water that the CAP has been able to provide. So we're fighting for the future of Arizona when we're talking about making sure that we get a share, an appropriate, a just share of the Colorado River water. It'll be less. We know that the climate has been against us. We're in over 1,000 years since we had a drought that was this bad in the Rocky Mountains. So I know we're also hearing from these mayors that they're preparing to do more with less, but they can't do without. And I think that's the message that this coalition is bringing loud and clear to all of Arizona.
Mayor Crane, what is the greatest immediate water related concern that Carefree has? I mean, obviously, supply is as Terry reiterated there. But is there something that really builds in there that you're thinking to yourself, this is something that is not 5 years in the future. This is, as Terry has said, something that could affect the community as soon as 2026.
Well, that's exactly right. So we, as well as every other CAP customer, face the prospect of very significant cutbacks, in beginning 2026, 2027. And that's certainly front of mind for all of us here in Carefree, and I'm sure throughout the coalition. So that's clearly front and center. And because in our community, we don't have a backup that's going to see us through in the long term. We have wells, but they're finite. And so we need to have alternative supplies. And so we don't have a sort treatment plant. We don't have a reclamation means here. But no, we take steps to look into the future. We're part of the team of municipalities, tribal nations. I believe there's one private entity looking to raise Bartlett Dam, but that's a long-term project, and so the near term is no front and center on our mind and how we're going to deal with that, and how we, as a group, make sure that our allocations are secure, or if they're reduced in a reasonable way, and that we are in the position to conserve water at the same time.
Mayor Fitzgibbons, immediate concern at this point?
Sure. Well, Cash Grant has faced limitations of the Pinal AMA groundwater model for years. I mean, over 7, 8 years now. So those prior laws and regulations were limiting our ability for future growth. But we're happy to see that over the past year and with the recent legislation session, the new water policy and laws were passed, which will allow Cash Grant to better manage both the water sustainability concurrently with new developments. So the passage of those new laws that focus on alternative designation of assured water, we haven't had that. So we're looking forward to moving forward and being able to develop in the community once again. And then of course, also along with the bill that allows farmers to convert water credits when moving from ag to urban. That's of course going to be very helpful. So both of those offer us a pretty good, sound water policy when making our future development decisions. So, but in addition, the cutbacks to the Colorado River supplies have a long-lasting impact on our, like I said, the agriculture economy. So the persistent drought has led shortages within the system, and we rely, Cash Grant and Pinal County deeply rely on the Colorado River. So we have seen the largest cuts into this source of water. So obviously concerning.
Terry, before we go to you, I want to have Mayor Winfield jump in. Mayor Winfield?
Yeah, I would say, Steve, the most immediate concern of our water utility is really simply the uncertainty of the CAP allocation. I'm sure your audience can appreciate it very challenging to plan for the future of our community when we don't know what that allocation ultimately will be. And so consequently, it really puts at risk our groundwater supplies, our community sustainability. And so we hope that this allocation is resolved as soon as possible.
Terry?
Yeah, that's what we're fighting for at CAP and at the State Department of Water Resources, is exactly that level of security. Maybe a lower level of total water supply, but security is critical. But I want to get back to Mayor Fitzgibbons for a moment, because there's a falsehood out there right now in our discussions with the other states. And one of them is that Arizona wastewater, and the pure fact is that we use less water today than we did 50 years ago. It's amazing, but that is the case, because these cities and towns have really done a terrific job and their citizens have done a terrific job of tightening their belts and living in a desert. But the second part is that they also say that we've never suffered a cutback, that we've been living fat on the hog, if you will. And that's just not true. Pinal County has taken a huge hit. Over 500,000 acre feet are out of the CAP system under a tier 1 shortage. That's today. And most of that came from Pinal County Ag. So Mayor Fitzgibbons is in the middle of huge sacrifices by the state of Arizona already. And I just want to emphasize that, because the Upper Basin in particular, the states that we're negotiating with, Colorado, Wyoming, New Mexico, and Utah, persist in saying that Arizona is wasting water and that we haven't suffered anything.
Thanks for clarifying that, Terry. And just to remind folks who are watching us live, we do have a few questions. You can send in a few more. We'll get to them as the conversation allows. This is a little bit different for the three of you. Mayor Winfield, let me start with you on this. How do these concerns from a practical standpoint, I mean, really hit us over the head with it, affect your community's ability to expand, bring more employers, have more industrial growth, whether it is the fact of cutbacks or, as you mentioned, the uncertainty of what the supply may end up being? How is that affecting the short-term ability to grow Oro Valley in whatever way the community wants it to grow?
Yeah, a stable and sustainable water supply is really a key, a prerequisite to business growth. Businesses coming into any community, whether that's Oro Valley, Casa Grande, or Cave Creek, they're wanting to come into communities that are not water stressed or where there's uncertainty about future water supply. And so again, that's why CAP is so critical, because it provides that lifeline, so to speak, and to supply water to our communities to ensure that businesses can make those investments, knowing that water is going to be available to that community and indefinitely.
Mayor Crane, Carefree?
Yeah, so I think Mayor hit it exactly on the head. So we're worried about water stress and uncertainty. And while my community is relatively mature, we still need to attract commercial businesses here, and they have choices. And given the magnitude of this issue, they have choices between states. They have parts of our country to invest, and so we need a secure water supply to secure those investments, not only within Carefree, Maricopa County, and throughout the state of Arizona.
Mayor Fitzgibbons, you are the largest community represented here, so obviously Casa Grande is affected even more dramatically, I would think, by trying to grow, get more industry, get more businesses there.
Mhm. No, absolutely. And just like what my fellow mayors mentioned, it's about, sustainable growth and just the uncertainties. So we get those concerns all the time, on where we are. And obviously our agriculture community has taken a hit, and they're the ones that are affected by this. But, like I mentioned earlier, not so much the industrial yet, because they don't, need a subdivision plat. But under the new ADOS program, we're going to have to put more thought into evaluating those potential projects. So we recently finished an effluent discharge line project that runs through our that portion of the industrial corridor. So that's going to allow our industries to utilize treated effluent in lieu of groundwater. So it is the goal of the city to best allocate and utilize the treated effluent as we manage through this growth for residential and industrial users. So that's one way we're kind of working towards doing what we can.
Mayor Crane, one of the things that excited me about this particular panel is that I've lived in Phoenix most of my life, and I've spent a lot of time in Tucson recently as well. I think that there is so much less attention given, and from a practical standpoint, I think we can all understand. But each of your areas, and I want to have you each address this, has a relatively small population. Does that affect the perspective that either people in your community have, or the people who look at your community might say, like, well, come on, they don't have to do nearly as much, so water, blah blah blah. I'm sure people don't actually say it like that. But is there a difference there because you have a smaller community there as far as perspective of what people either expect or say to you?
Well, I would say living in a small community, our residents are probably collectively much more in tune with the drought than in other communities. I mean, the beauty of being in a small community, I think, is we communicate. We're closer to them, to our residents, and we communicate this issue to them. So they're very much in tune with what's going on. From the outside looking in, people that we're so small, people probably don't think of us and think about our water use, which can be good or bad. I mean, we need to protect it, and that's what we're all part of this coalition for. But within the community, our town, our residents are in tune with what's happening.
Mayor Winfield?
Well, I would say because of the relative, I mean, in comparison to Tucson or Phoenix, I would say that just as Mayor Crane said that there's this heightened awareness. I, I'm I'm really I don't have much arm's length between me and my constituency, and so water is a huge concern to my community, and so this is a topic that comes up frequently. In fact, I mean I don't want to exaggerate, but it's something that as I'm out in the community, whether that's for some formal event or just buying groceries, as I was doing last night, the topic of water is something that frequently comes up. And so I think that, how does that affect our perspective? Water is as important to us as a smaller community as it is to a larger community. And in a sense, we're all in this together. So,
Mayor
but there
Winfield,
is
yeah.
that proximity to a constituency, I think, is much more is greater in a smaller community.
Mayor Winfield, did you tell those people at the grocery store to watch you this morning to learn more or no?
I didn't, Steve.
Okay. Mayor Fitzgibbons, your thoughts on this?
No, and good point, Mayor Winfield. That's so true. When you live in these small communities, you are face to face with your constituents everywhere you go. So definitely as a new mayor, that's definitely been something a little eye opening for me. Everywhere I go, it takes a little bit longer. But no, it's definitely it's on top of mind of the community, and it's just people watch the news. They're hearing about water, and when they see all these new subdivisions pop up, we have a lot of apartments that are coming up in our community. People are concerned, where is the water coming? So I think there is definitely, there's a sense of urgency of understanding and what are we doing. So, again, we're unique because the city isn't the primary water provider. So, but we obviously understand, that our economy and growth depend on sustainable water. So, we're working. It's definitely been part of our general plan. We're working on conservation efforts, reducing per capita waters. So we're really trying to get the message out there as much as we can.
Harry, can I ask you to weigh in on this based on the coalition aspect of this? Because as you mentioned, these are mayors of smaller communities in Arizona. How important is it for the coalition to, again, be collective, be not just thinking about the big dogs on the street, but everyone in our state is affected by this potentially?
Well, it's critical, Steve, and I think this is a wonderful cross section of city government because this is the future of Arizona. These cities, if you take them collectively, I think our hope is in the small towns, and I don't mean that to disparage Casa Grande at all. I mean, you're not a small town, but this is the heartland of our state, and if you just measure by Phoenix and Tucson, you don't get a clear idea as to what the water impacts are going to be. Um, and there are a number of reasons for that, but I think what we're really looking at is the future, the next 20, 40 years. And what they have expressed, all three of them today, about security and about quality of life, I think is absolutely critical for Arizona. And it's far, I think, again, coming from what would be the big city, I think what they have to say is the most important message for our state in total, because it represents, as they said, an ear to the ground sense for what Arizona citizens are thinking, what they need, what their concerns are. There is no better listening point than a mayor in a city of 3,000 or 4,000 people. They know exactly what's going on, and I think to have this cross section is emblematic of the issue, and it is also a critical statement about where Arizona is headed.
I want to remind our viewers, this is the Arizona Capital Times Morning Scoop Coalition for Protecting Arizona's Lifeline, joined by Terry Goddard, president of the Central Arizona Water Conservation District Board. Also, Lisa Navarro Fitzgibbons, mayor of Casa Grande, John Crane, mayor of Carefree, and Joe Winfield, mayor of Oro Valley. We're about halfway through, and we're looking for your questions if you have some. I promise we'll get to them a little bit later on in the conversation. Mayor Winfield, I want to start with you on this. I think we all think that, and as you said, people are coming up to you in the grocery store. So it's not as though the community isn't aware, but how important is continuing education on this issue to make sure that your constituents, the people who live in Oro Valley, and obviously I'll ask the other mayors this as well, that they know what's going on, even specifically the Colorado River's role in water supply to your community?
Now, we really work hard to communicate to our residents, and we do that through a number of avenues. We frequently update our website, for example, for those residents who monitor the website and go there for information so that it's not stale. So we're continually updating that. We have a ongoing outreach to businesses, to schools, to homeowners associations. So we have a staff person who goes out, and so these meetings are happening monthly to provide additional information. We have a quarterly newsletter that is part of the bill that goes out to our residents titled Behind the Meter, incredibly informative, and I think adds real value in terms of helping to educate and inform our residents. We have a town podcast, and so our water utility director has an annual podcast interview. We have a community academy, and this is offered annually, and so water is a key element of that. And of course, this is open to all residents. And then we have a water utility commission that is made up of residents, 5 residents of our community. And of course, they're very much informed and immersed, and they're charged with not keeping that information to themselves, but sharing that information. So there's a number of different avenues where we really try to inform and educate our residents.
This may be anecdotal, Mayor Whitfield, but are you finding that is the feedback very positive? Are people saying we're paying attention to this information that's available and we're benefiting from it?
I believe so, Steve. I think the feedback is positive, and I think it helps to fuel that conversation about water because our residents are more informed about it, and so yes.
Great. And Mayor Crane, what about you? In Carefree, are there opportunities to educate your community? And I presume they're interested in learning more.
Oh, absolutely. So we use many of the same tools that Mayor Winfield referenced. The website's critical for us. We put information on there, especially about related to conservation. So how to better manage your irrigation system, how to better manage the fixtures in your home, whether it's a shower head or a toilet. Um, just creating this greater awareness. We also run a garden seminar program where we've had it for years. But in recent years, the focus has been more water related. So drought related plants. How do you, enjoy the Sonoran Desert without doing without making it barren, but certainly not having a lush environment out there. So we use those tools. We're creating a water advisory board to complement our water company board that'll be created this fall. And we do know that our water board meetings are very well attended. And I mentioned earlier about the acquisition of about 25% of our customers, our water customers, we acquired from a nearby water company a few years ago. And I think just that process lives on. So that was a very engaged process, somewhat controversial, and that raised sensitivity to water. They're in tune to water, not only what it costs, but how it's used, where it comes from. So so that continues. So when there's a dialogue, education carries on.
Mayor Fitzgibbons, you no doubt have layers of this as Casa Grande grows. So what are some of the more important ways? And also, are people benefiting from it, do you think, in your city?
Right. No, absolutely. And just what my fellow mayor said, it's so important to keep that message out there because it draws the attention to what's happening. So, we work with Arizona Water Company to make sure that we're developing educational messages related to water. Of course, our ag community is very familiar. They're very on top of it. We are, I'm always hearing from that community, but again, it's just our citizens making sure we're educating them on where we are. So we, definitely implemented, I think it was about 3 years ago, a Save It program. And it's the first in the state where to have a city government and a private utility company working on a comprehensive demand management program. And the Save It program is a campaign that provides conservation tips and resources for residents and commercial users. And we're leading by example. We're here making sure that we're reducing our water footprint, with the city facilities. So we did a water demand survey and reducing some of our, landscape area with, turf and desert landscaping. So we just want to make sure that we're showing the community that we're doing these things too, and they can do it. So, but definitely different newsletters, messaging, that's going out. We have a program with Kohler Company. Kohler is one of the manufacturing facilities in our community, and it's a toilet rebate program. So people can be reimbursed for a water efficient toilet, and that's funded through the Water Infrastructure Funding Authority. We have a grant with them. So Project Wet, which is a festival that we have with fourth graders, and teachers, and so they can enjoy a day with water education and exploration. And so just continuing to work with our HOAs, our community, and schools to continue that education.
Mayor Fitzgibbons, this may be. Oh, sorry, Mayor Crane, go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, I was going to add that continue even the same message over and over again is critical because you have new residents coming to the community. You have a big thunderstorm, a big monsoon storm comes in. People think, oh, it's we're good to go, and you just need to reinforce that message constantly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Mayor Crane, I think Carefree and then your neighbor Cave Creek is lucky enough to get a little bit more rain than the rest of us sometimes. So that's that's
There we
helpful.
are, but it flows south.
Yes, absolutely. Mayor Fitzgibbons, I wanted to ask you just a quick follow-up. This may be anecdotal, but you mentioned fourth graders.
Mm-hmm.
Is there I mean, just how vital is that to know that and have the younger generation sort of push the older generation to say, yes, we need this, but maybe conservation should be more front of mind.
It's critical. I mean, I had 3 children of my own, and I remember, when it was, recycling day, I could not, there better not be a can in my garbage can or a water bottle in there. The kids, they absorb this, they're sponges. They will then educate their parents and family. And so it's important to teach them at a young age how important it is. So it's vital. And I think in going to that, I've been to that program, and it's so exciting to see them just absorb all this information. And then they're taught by, their fellow, their older leaders, like high school age kids that had been through the program, and they're the ones that are teaching them. So it's so important.
We're obviously trying to avoid, I mean, this is a whole collection of cities and towns that are doing this. So I don't want to get into the conventional politics of it. But Mayor Whitfield, let me start with you and let me ask all of you, when it comes to conservation in your community, are there folks who frankly are not enthusiastic about that? And are there good conversations to be had from that? Or is there, I'll use the word hostility. Is there some hostility to that saying, I don't want frankly, I don't want the government telling me how to use my water?
I would say in general that conservation messaging and programs that we have in our community are well received. I would say there are some outliers who, because for any variety of reasons, resist the water conservation message. But generally, and so we really have 4 avenues for promoting conservation in our community. One is just through our rate system. We have 4 tiers, and it's really incentivized, of course, to the less water you use, the lower your bill is going to be. We also have advanced metering infrastructure, so meters that have a radio transmitter so that there's real-time usage. Connected to that is a program called Water Smart, which about 40% of our residents are currently participating in. What that does is you put some parameters, and if you exceed that water usage, you're notified through an email. So what that may do is alert you that you have a water leak, and so you can actually, call the water utility and they'll come out and help you to investigate. It's a very sensitive. So for example, for my wife and I, we'll get an alert on a day that we wash our cars, for example, so that because that's not something we do every day, given the parameters that we put in there. We also have a water conservation specialist. This is the individual I spoke of earlier that's going out to meet with businesses, homeowner associations, individual residents who request their assistance to do an analysis of their water use and how residents can reduce their water consumption. And then we've also implemented some town ordinances or codes to address water wasting and also to encourage water harvesting as some examples. So those are 4 ways. So I would say in general, water conservation message is received well, and we see real results. Terry Goddard mentioned about how we're using less water today than 20 years ago. That's certainly true for the town of Oro Valley, and that's not just because we're using reclaimed and Central Arizona Project water. Over our water portfolio, we're using a couple 1,000 acre-feet of water less than we were 20 years ago, but of course our population is significantly increased. So there's real water conservation that's happening.
Corinne, tell us how the conservation message is being received in Carefree.
Yeah, so obviously, generally, it's received well. So we have programs similar to what Mayor Winfield was talking about. We have something called Eye on Water, where water usage is monitored, and if there's a spike, that customer receives an email or even a phone call. And I know they really appreciate those phone calls. So if they have an irrigation leak, there's a spike, the line running to their home springs a leak, there's a spike, we notify them, we're out in front of it. But even as a homeowner, even if it doesn't get to that magnitude, you can monitor your usage daily, but even hourly, and you can go out there and troubleshoot and figure out what's happening on your system. We also use tiered pricing to encourage water conservation. And I would also say, if we go to our residents, and just generally speaking, and we say, you can save on your irrigation system by just dialing it back 10 minutes of your running cycle. And recommendations like that are generally well received. They get it. Because if you do the math, it's a significant savings. And 70% of our water is used for outdoors, whether it be irrigation, pools, fountains, and so forth. So if we can come up with ways to really make a difference, and that's a low hanging fruit is the outdoors. When we talk about that, our residents appreciate it.
Mayor Fitzgibbons, you already mentioned the farming community, but overall, conservation message, how's it going in Casa Grande?
It really is going well. I don't get too much against it. I think we can definitely do a better job. We again have Arizona Water Company that we work with. So, but we have the Save It program and providing tips for conservation. But I think the key is working, showing how important it is by us us doing it too with the city. And I mentioned briefly, our Water Wise campaign. And, this is something that we started with the City Hall Conservation Project. And we showed people, how important it is to conserve. And so I think, and people were complaining when they saw the grass getting torn out at our beautiful City Hall. But when we explained why, the why is really important. We have to tell people why it's important to do it and how they can do it, even if it's small amounts, whether it's, water fixtures, irrigation, landscaping, that every little bit matters and we all need to do our part.
Harry, you've been involved in this for a long time. Have you noticed a feeling about conservation? Has it been more embraced in recent years? You mentioned obviously the water usage being less than it was 5 decades ago, but is there a feeling that people are more willing to look at the reality of a situation, much of the state being in a desert area, that people are more willing to go along with it and not fight it quite the same way?
Well, 40 years ago, I think most residents of Phoenix at least thought that they still lived in Kansas. There was a feeling that you had to have an acre of lawn or you have a big section of lawn. And if you've watched any evolution, I think it's that one that the mayors have been talking about. These are widely varied communities in terms of average income, but they all have a conservation ethic. Because I think now, unlike 40 years ago, people understand that they live in a desert. They're here for a reason. They like the desert, and somehow the amount of turf voluntarily has gone down dramatically. I think it's like 70 to 80% of the turf that used to be, at least in Maricopa County, has been removed. The discretionary turf, the stuff that is purely ornamental. And what the Mayor Fitzgibbon said about taking the lawn out at City Hall, that's painful. I think a lot of people might feel the immediate feeling that that was something that made it less desirable, but there is an alternative, and it's xeriscape, and it's the wonderful desert bloom that we enjoy up here, especially up in Carefree. I mean, you've got in Oro Valley, have some of the most beautiful desert in the world, and you're now figuring out ways to exalt it. And I think that change of attitude is been really important. So I salute you for what you're doing. We just need to say more about it because again, I'm facing interstate criticism that Arizona is still the land of fountains and golf courses and wasting water. And what you've said, I think, makes it so clear that ain't the truth. But we need to get the word out more effectively, and that's what this coalition is doing.
Well, I think there's a need for a big philosophical question at this point. And Mayor Fitzgibbons, let me start with you on this. I've asked you sort of how it feels to how some of your community feels and what sort of feedback you're hearing, but how do you respond to the residents, business owners who are concerned about Arizona's water future and concerns about whether it is actually a sustainable place to be? And that again affects probably whether people act with their feet, get in there, stay, leave, and also whether businesses will want to expand there. What do you tell people who they may not be cynical, but they're a little bit skeptical?
No, absolutely. Because they're reading different things and it's definitely out. That those concerns are there. So first, I definitely assure them that Casa Grande, through the partnership with Arizona Water, has met the 100-year assured water supply requirements. So that can be renewed in a 100-year water supply before construction begins. So second, I advise them that the elected body takes it very serious, and has shown diligence time after time after incorporating various goals and expectations related to water and growth in our 2030 general plan. So we understand that the importance and it's just important to note that we're not stopping. We're continuing to make sure that this is a high priority by joining this coalition. We're working with our fellow mayors to make sure that we have, a strong future. So it is important to keep that message on the top of mind with them and assure them that, we are on top of this and this is a major priority for us.
Mayor Crane, do you hear from folks who are excited about Arizona and yet a little bit nervous about the water? And what do you say to them?
I tell them that Arizona is a leader in drought management and water management. Um, and, and there's probably not a day goes by where virtually every councilman or mayor in our in the state thinks about water. So it's front of mind, and we have a lot of resources that are focused on it to find solutions to manage it, and we'll get through it.
Mayor Winfield, why don't you weigh in on that?
I think, similarly, Steve, it's important to, again, educate and inform our community about exactly what the position of the town, what position we're in regards to water, and how we are doing all that we can to preserve groundwater. We do that by receiving our CAP allocation, by using reclaimed water, but we also do that through maintaining our water system. So we have very low water loss in our water system. It's under 2% a year, which the Arizona Department of Water Resources allows up to 10%. So we, as much as possible, try to minimize that loss in our system. We also try to manage to the extent possible on town properties to ensure that we're using that water to the best of our ability. Reclaimed water on sod to the extent possible, and again, trying to be mindful and applying those water conservation measures as a municipality, and that's not just an expectation of our residents.
Terry, what's the big picture message there?
Well, I think we don't solve a problem by ignoring it. And what you have heard from these mayors is a very hands-on, realistic way of approaching what we all know is a fact, which is the Colorado River is delivering between 20 and 30% less water than it did 100 years ago. It is in the longest drought, as we call it a millennial drought, because the last time we had 25 years of sustained drought on the Colorado River was over 1,000 years ago. So we're dealing with some extraordinary issues, including 40 million people that are served by this river. The demand is increasing. So realism says this is a smaller water supply and we have to maintain it. We have to deal with it realistically. We don't do that by saying to everybody, we don't have a problem. Yes, we have a problem, but we also have, as Mayor Crane said, the best long-term water management on a state level in the country. And about a year ago, you probably remember, Department of Water Resources said on the 100-year horizon, we had a 4% shortage in Western Maricopa County AMA, 4% shortage in 100 years. And the New York Times did a series of articles that you would have thought meant that Arizona had run out of water. No, my challenge to them was what other state, what other part of the country does a 100-year supply analysis? None of them. And so because we were doing the right thing and taking a long view, they chose to show that as a criticism. It's not. And so what we have here is informed concern by the city officials in Arizona that don't ignore the problem. They're wrestling with it and they're finding realistic solutions to deal effectively with less and have a secure supply. I applaud that 100% and over.
Terry, I have one question I want to ask you from an audience question related to the health of the Colorado River, just not how much water we can get. What is the long-term health of the river?
I'm not a hydrologist, but I've sure seen a lot of hydrology in the last few years. And as I said a minute ago, the river is significantly lower. Back when they did the Colorado Compact, which did the original division among the 7 states, they thought the river would sustainably run at between 18 and even 20 million acre feet a year. And that was more than enough to sustain in both the upper and lower basin at 7.5 million acre feet apiece. It turns out that they were wrong. Not only was the year that they did their measurements some of the highest in history, but the demands have gone up and the climate has gotten significantly warmer. So the bottom line is less runoff, less rain, and much more demand. So what is the long-term prognosis? We need to be careful. We don't have the same supply that we had before. And so we're going to take less. We're already taking less in Arizona. Our CAP supply from the Colorado River is down by 1/3. So we are setting an example of what it means to be frugal. But we still have these interstate agreements that have to be settled. They have to be done justly for our state. So it's a smaller river and the demand is greater. So those are the realistic aspects. We don't expect to have a big flood anytime soon. Maybe that's good news, but that's how the Salton Sea got created, by the way. But the prospects for that in the immediate future are not good. We have to live with what we have, and it's going to be a reduced water future.
So we're approaching the end of our hour here, and I want to go around the horn again here. Mayor Fitzgibbons, I was just thinking about what it's like to run for office and then have these responsibilities when you come to office. Obviously, our water concerns in Arizona have been forever, but was this something that you realized that when you became mayor that that this was going to be front and center for the most part as far as what your responsibilities were? And I presume they are.
No, and you know, of course, I was on the city council before, but no, as a mayor, I didn't realize that this is literally, you know, number one, you know, priority here. And you know, we understand that the Colorado River is the lifeline throughout many communities, and Casa Grande is one of those. It supports millions of people. So, you know, the support of this coalition is obvious, you know, obvious why we would do it. But you know, we just have to make sure that we ensure a fair distribution of water and protect all of our communities and economies. So yeah, we will in Casa Grande, we will continue to do what we can at a local level and to ensure that the resources wisely utilized. So definitely has been a learning curve for sure. Definitely a complex issue. I never, Mr. Goddard, I just had no idea how much went into all of this, but learning a lot, that's for sure. But there's such great, just the experts out there, you know, people that are very knowledgeable that we partner with. And so that's critical moving forward.
Mayor Crane, your final thoughts, including did you realize water was going to be front and center for you?
Well, we knew it was percolating as a problem for several years. We knew that. And I think we're always optimistic and we think, okay, the drought will break eventually, but it hasn't. And so we, you know, we're at a time when we have to make tough decisions and we'll make those decisions. And just going back to one other comment, I think a lot of it is in terms of conservation is culture. So we talked about years ago, you know, keep America beautiful, recycling. And so today we just need to just embed this culture of water conservation in our residents. And progress has been made. There's no question. People are sensitive to it. So we have a desert garden in the center of our town. When there's an emitter off, I get a phone call. That's great. People are thinking about it, and that's how basically that's a big part of how we're going to solve this thing.
And Mayor Winfield, before Terry Goddard wraps us up, give me your final thoughts, please.
Sure. I'm a landscape architect by profession. I work for the National Park Service. So I certainly came in with a certain environmental awareness and an awareness about water. I certainly, just along with my residents, have been educated and informed through my service in my community. I just want to underscore that that we've been planning for water shortages, the town of Oro Valley, the state of Arizona, for decades. The canal is a good example of that. I mean, I really applaud Senator Hayden and others who brought that project into fruition. And I think it shows the kind of vision that the state of Arizona had, realizing that water was so key. And I think we're well positioned to address these shortages. I'm not trying to be dismissive of these cutbacks, but I think we are in a good position to address these shortages in a reasonable way. And I think that brings great promise and hope to our community, the town of Oro Valley, to my friends at Casa Grande and Cave Creek, and across the state. So thanks.
Terry Goddard, your closing remarks, sir.
Thank you, Steve. And thanks to everybody who has followed this conversation. I think you should be inspired at the level of local leadership that we have here in Arizona on the water issue. It's truly extraordinary, and I think we've got a great cross section of it here, hands-on with a very serious problem that we all have to confront. And the cities and towns in our city, our state are doing it. And thank you. Please go, if you are online, to protectingarizonaslifeline.com, protectingarizonaslifeline.com. You'll get some more information about this coalition. You can sign a pledge to be part of the solution. I hope you will. So thanks, Steve, and thanks to everybody for your concern about Arizona's water.
This has been the Arizona Capital Times Morning Scoop Coalition for Protecting Arizona's Lifeline. Thanks again to Terry Goddard, President of the Central Arizona Water Conservation District Board. Also mayors Lisa Navarro Fitzgibbons of Casa Grande, John Crane of Carefree, and Joe Winfield of Oro Valley. Thank you all for taking the time today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Right.